magnetize your minis, flight stands, custom kits, and all the hobby supplies you'll need from themagnetbaron.com.
Hello and welcome to the YouTube channel for Craftworld, Eldar.com. I'm Brent, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about what's ahead for this content and my website in 2023. First, though, I'd like to say a big thank you to my patrons who enjoy early access to most videos, a private Discord, and an opportunity to listen to the audio tracks of these videos like a podcast. I also appreciate those of you who are not patrons. It definitely helps me if you click like, subscribe, leave comments on videos, so thank you for everything you guys do to support this content. Okay, here we go. 2023 is going to be an exciting year for Craftworld's players everywhere. There are some major changes coming to the meta and new rules for matched play and a spin-off game called Boarding Actions that will give us a whole new way to play 40k at the 500-point level. And that's just the stuff that we already know about in the first few months of 2023. I will, of course, continue to produce unit-focused videos, interviews with top players, and general tactics videos throughout the calendar year. And I apologize that content slowed in November and December last year. It was not by choice. Remember that time that Vol duped Cain with a fake sword, triggering a war between the Eldari gods that lasted until Cain chopped off Vol's hand and shamed him to his own anvil? That's kind of like what my life has been like for the last few weeks, which is why content has been less prolific than before. Not because I am any less enthusiastic about videos or writing articles or whatever. In fact, as things calm down, it's especially exciting to get back to content creation. Here are some things that are in the shuriken clip for this upcoming calendar year, in addition to those unit-focused videos and interviews that you can absolutely count on. First thing. That is the next video, and that's a rundown of what Arcs of Omen means for Craftworld Eldar players. So in just under a week, the new chapter approved called Arcs of Omen will drop, which will have the updated matched play rules for the 2023 season, which in combination with the recent FAQ and data slate changes that we just got will significantly shake up the game. There's also cool narrative stuff that moves the story of 40k forward. A lot of what's coming has already been revealed online by content creators deemed by Games Workshop to be significant enough to deserve advanced copies of new rules for review. Oh, to one day be among that elite cadre blessed by Isha, but I'm not there yet. Probably like most of you, I've been following these reveals enthusiastically, but I won't be able to post an actual video about any of it until I have the rules in hand on release day. That video is coming soon, hopefully within 24 hours of the book going up for sale, as I'm pretty sure we already know at least 80% of the content, and I've already written the majority of the article that will be the basis for the next video. But I do need to see the rest of those rules in order to be responsible about that next release of content. For now, I'll just say that detachment rules got a major shakeup. Point costs went up for several essential CWE units. That's Craftworld Eldar for you people new to acronyms out there. Our secondary objectives have changed in a big way. I think mostly for the worse, actually, so we're going to have to rethink that. Armor of Contempt is gone. Aircraft rules have changed. And there's simply no doubt that the meta, which for you newbie players refers to which units and factions are commonly showing up in competitive play, the meta is going to look very different in 2023 than it did in 2022. And how we build armies, what units are most viable, how we select secondary objectives, and what kinds of enemy units we can expect to see on the other side of the table are all going to get a shakeup. So more on that in just under a week. But this is a big shift, this particular chapter approved. So that's the first big thing, in addition to the videos that we're accustomed to, the unit-focused videos and whatnot. So thing number 2, boarding actions. So another big Wraithbone mile marker on the horizon is the release of Boarding Actions, which I briefly mentioned earlier. It's a standalone game that features a new way to play 500-point games of 40k in the narrow hallways of Space Hulks using this unique terrain set. I'm excited for Boarding Actions for 2 reasons. The first is that I always enjoy new ways to play with models I already own. I was a big fan of the short-lived, under-supported Apocalypse rules that came out a few years ago, which was sort of like vaguely like second ed epic 40k, but with your normal 40K models for those of us who have ridiculously large collections. It didn't really get supported, and not a whole lot of people are still playing, which I think is too bad. But the other reason that I'm excited about the release of Boarding Actions, in addition to the fact that I like these boutique games, is that I have a sneaking suspicion that what we might actually be seeing with this game is beta testing for a bunch of 10th edition rules, which I'm sure we're all curious about. GW has pronounced Boarding Actions a much simpler, leaner game with, for example, only 3 core stratagems and potentially no faction-specific options at all, which is consistent with the rumors about 10th edition, which is allegedly much lighter on rules, and that there will be much less to keep track of than in 8th or 9th edition, which is something that casual players and people who only play 6 or 7 games a year have been clamoring for. And they are probably, to be fair, the largest segment of the community. So there seems to be a lot of indicators on the horizon that GW is listening to that and maybe moving in that direction. And that sounds like that's what Boarding Actions is. So although I don't personally think we will see 10th Ed in 2023, it will not surprise me at all if the next edition is announced for 2024 later this year, giving GW just enough time to use feedback on Boarding Actions to tweak the rules. Also, since GW terminated the playtesting program outside of the hallways of Warhammer World itself, and not like the people just playing on the like the secret tables or the off hours that are accessible only to the chosen few. The fact is that they're going to have to find new ways to get feedback. So I suspect these boutique games might be one way to do that. Regardless of its relevance, though, to the future of the main 40K tabletop game, Boarding Actions is likely to be really fun in its own right and an easy way for newer players to learn the fundamentals of 40K, as the core mechanics, hit rolls, wound rolls, and all that are going to be identical to 9th edition foundational rules, even if a lot of the extra stuff like secondaries and stratagems aren't really there. So I will release an intro video sharing first thoughts on playing Craftworlds and Boarding Actions shortly after the game goes on sale, and then hopefully another one on effective tactics once the game has been out long enough for me to get some reps in. So that's big thing number 2 in the near term. Big thing number 3, or moderate-sized thing number 3. I'm going to release a video on Crusade play, probably right before summer. A few of you have been asking for a video about Crusade play basically since 9th edition, the 9th edition Codex dropped. My friendly local game store, Cobb Arena, is about to kick off a 16-week Crusade in our unique setting, Sector Bellerophon, and I plan to focus on how best to make use of units like Corsairs and Storm Guardians and Fire Dragons and units that see few opportunities for play in competitive 40K. I'm mostly a competitive player. I play lots and lots of matched play. I do really like narrative play. It's just I only have so many hours to play, and so I allocate my resources where my interests are. But I have really been looking forward to this Crusade, and so I will post a video about how to make use of these sorts of outlier units, which upgrades make them the equal of standard units from other factions, because I think that a lot of us, when we play narrative games, what we're interested in doing is using those units that are in our display case but maybe don't see a lot of play on the table. I'll also talk a bit about thinking narratively about your Crusade force and how that can enhance your play experience. In our Crusade, we plan to use Game Masters and have them interfere in our Crusade, as well as AI-driven NPC forces of like Drukhari Slavers and Demons and Genestealer Cultists. And so I may talk just a little bit too about how to incorporate those sorts of elements and twists into your own Crusade games, if that's something you're interested in. Again, this will be a video or two. I know many of you aren't here for that. So we're not shifting the focus. This is just a rundown of stuff to expect in 2023, and that is one of the things that's in the hopper. All right, thing number 4, updated videos on army construction and playing primary objectives. I have videos on both of those. They're super dated at this point. Obviously, how you build your army for competitive play is one of the most important elements of the game in terms of tactics and thinking about, and it's one of the most fun parts too. I mean, part of winning is how you build your army. So I do have 2 older videos, and if you were to listen to them again and listen to all of these sort of abstract considerations that I point out, like every decision you make with reference to something like A sub-faction bonus, or what unit you're including, especially if it buffs other units, changes the relative value of every other unit, and how does that influence the way you think about secondaries and primaries. A lot of the core content, if you're familiar with those earlier videos, the abstract principles will remain the same, but I will update all of the content to reflect where the actual units and rules are right now for Craftworld Eldar. And then one of the hardest aspects of playing Space Elves is how to play primary objectives, because we're not durable and you have to hold on to primary objectives to score them. So how does that work? Just walking onto them with tough units and hoping not to die is really not the way to do it as an elf player. And so I'll do a video all about that. The primary objective video that exists at this point is pretty hopelessly dated. So that's thing number 4. Thing number 5, at some point I'm going to do a video on how Craftworld Eldar lore and to some degree tactics on the table have evolved since the early days of Rogue Trader in first edition up to the current incarnation. That's just something that I'm personally interested in, and so I get 1 or 2 kind of self-indulgent videos in the course of a year. I really like looking back at the early White Dwarfs and the early books that sort of laid the foundations, and looking at the ways in which original ideas for who the Eldar are, what the craft worlds are, what they looked like initially, and how they evolved into something pretty different and something pretty wonderful that I think we're all pretty invested in. Lastly, at some point, I will record another work of fiction. I know most of you are probably only here for tactics, but I was flattered that the first piece of fiction that I posted generated so many requests for additional stories, and now that I'm no longer writing actively for the Clockwork Dominion RPG, I have more time and energy to throw at an occasional 40k story, so I hope to do that too. So that's the plan so far for 2023. Lots more unit-focused videos, more interviews with top players, other general tactics, but also these other 6 things that I've just touched on. If there's particular content that you would like to see personally, or a unit that you would like to see get its own videos sooner rather than later, please feel free to let me know in the comments below, or you could also just say hello in the comments below to help out the algorithm. I appreciate that too. And just in case anybody feels ready to take the dive into becoming a patron, I will include a link for that also. So that's what I've got. Best wishes in your next campaign. I will look forward to being back in just a few days with a deep dive on what the new chapter approved means for the galaxy's most elegant civilization. Until then, talk to you soon. Take care.